Hi, my name is Jeff Foster, and welcome to this edition of Civic Sanctuary. Civic Sanctuary is a monthly television show put on by Lowell Votes, who sponsors and produces the show in partnership with LTC. This month, we're going to dig into an issue near and dear to my heart, which is youth civic engagement. I have with me tonight a wonderful panel of who I consider experts on all matters relating to youth. And I really hope that we're going to have a spirited discussion about what got all of them involved in being civically engaged in the city. Also, I want to talk a little bit with them about the issues that they think are really important to young people. And then I hope some point we can conclude by having them give some advice to other young people in Lowell on why they should get engaged. So, to introduce our panel, first off, to my left is Madeline Leahy. Madeline is a recent graduate of Lowell High School. There, Maddie was elected vice president of her graduating class. During her term, she collaborated with the student government to reinitiate a student representative to advise the Lowell School Committee. She worked on raising awareness concerning youth housing issues and organized student activities recognizing Lowell's annual Women's Week. This September, Maddie will be attending Roger Williams University as a psychology major. Maddie, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Next up, to my right, we have Vladimir Saldana. Vlad is an alumnus of Middlesex Community College and the University of Massachusetts at Lowell, go Riverhawks, where he was recognized for his leadership on campus and in the community by the Department of Higher Education's 29 Who Shine Award. During his time at MCC, he participated in the Paul H. Sullivan Leadership Institute. While attending UMass Lowell, Vlad was a board member of MALES, a group promoting success amongst male students of color and first-generation college students. Vladimir currently works as a project manager for a nonprofit community development organization in the city of Lawrence. His most recent community project is chairing a newly formed group, Fortaleza, a Latino education advocacy group in the city of Lowell. Vlad, welcome.
Thank you.
And finally, to the far right, we have Jack Breen. Jack comes to us as a sophomore at the University of Massachusetts at Lowell and a recent graduate of Lowell High School's class of 2015, where he's studying history and has an interest in political science. Jack, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. All right, so first up, I want to ask each of you to tell us a story. And I want that story to be about your very first moment getting engaged in civic matters in Lowell. Now, maybe it was a person, maybe it was an issue, maybe it was a television show that you watched, but I know for many folks who get engaged in the community, there's usually kind of that starting moment. And maybe we can start, Maddie, with you. If you could, just tell us a little bit of background, how you got engaged.
Well, it really all started when I was younger. My grandfather and my father were very involved with city politics. They were both city councilors. My dad is a city councilor now. But the first time I really got involved had to be last year with the issue of Lowell having gender-neutral bathrooms or not.
Tell us more. What got you interested in the issue?
Well, the issue was whether or not we should allow them for the purpose of safety and health, which I personally was very for having them, because I believe that it really is just a bathroom and we should all be able to go where we feel comfortable. And I really felt strongly that we needed those in Lowell and that it shouldn't be anything against the law in a great city that's very accepting and open of everyone.
Excellent. I agree with you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome. Thanks again. Vlad, what got you involved?
Yes, to make a long story short, I grew up in Lowell, and I was not that active kid. I didn't have sort of a role model to help me believe in myself that I had leadership skills. After graduating from the Voc, I wasn't sure if I was going to go to college or not. Really didn't also have the grade to go to college, to tell you the truth. Ended up going to Middlesex, and because of Middlesex, I owed all my success till today. The foundation, the leadership skills, the people that are still currently at Middlesex that believe in me were the one that started in me that I had what it takes to become a leader. There I got involved in many student organizations, student government, Paul H. Sullivan Leadership Institute, and a number of other clubs. I ended up just working on a lot of student involvement and issues on campus. So that kind of just was my start. From there on, I went to UMass, continue from, after the foundation that I built at Middlesex. And it just flew into the community. Remember, I lived in Lowell, so it was just natural.
Awesome. Thank you. Jack, what got you involved?
Well, I guess I'd say I kind of got involved kind of recently with the whole Lowell High School debate, whether it should stay downtown or stay at Colley. I mean, that issue is kind of something very dear to me. I know how it affects so many students. It also affects taxpayers in the city. So, yeah, I guess we'd start with the high school debate.
Excellent. Well, welcome all of you. Really appreciate it. And again, I want to reiterate that I'm viewing each of you as experts on youth issues. It always confuses me in the work that I do at the State House when the state wants to change laws as they relate to the environment. They bring in a group of environmental scientists, or if they want to change how the roads are brought out, they bring in experts who know how to do road layouts. What's always confused me is when they have debates on youth issues, why they don't bring in young people to weigh in on this. So I really appreciate both of you being here for the show, but I also appreciate that you've all responded to that call to be engaged in your community. It's really exciting. With that, let's flow into a discussion. I would love to hear from each of you on what you think we could do to get more young people engaged in matters in Lowell. I know in the work that I do at UTech, a big part of my role is to work with young people, get them civically engaged, and then connect them to some sort of an issue that they could own and even come up with their own campaigns. And unfortunately, it's been my experience that not a lot of young people are engaged in issues in the city. There are some, like you guys, and I think over the years we continue to grow it. I think we have a lot of work we can do. So, Vlad, maybe starting with you, what do you think we could do?
As community members, I think we all owe to the young folks of this city and the next generation to really bring them in. I think it takes the adults and the people in power to make the call. A lot of young people just don't know that they have the ability. A lot of young people don't even believe in themselves as having the necessary skills and leadership to weigh in and have a voice. And it's sometimes takes an adult, not sometimes, most of the time, takes adults to make the call and reach out and lay their hand and insert that they should and that they have what it takes currently. Because that was my experience, right? So I'm just speaking from my experience and what I do see. Like you were saying, what are your job? I mean, part of your job is to connect young folks to the issue. You do that actively. But if all community leaders and members are doing that actively, you will see a big wave of young folks being active.
Jack, what do you think? What are ways we can get more young people engaged?
I mean, I just kind of like to reiterate what Vlad said. I mean, I do think it takes the adults in the community to get the youth involved. I mean, the youth are going to be some of them might be becoming congressmen or senators in the future, but all of them are going to become voters, and I think it's it's essential for the leadership in this community to get the youth active in an early age.
Awesome. Maddie, what do you think?
Well, I agree completely with them. It definitely takes adults within the community, which is why I really believe that we should be bringing these topics into school, like discussing with teachers, counselors, and our mentors just about issues that are going on in the city to make young people aware of what's going on. And because I feel like from what I've seen, my experience is a lot of people just have no idea, they don't focus on it because it's not very interesting and it's not the young conversation that we're usually having. So I feel like if we just bring up those conversations more, it all starts there.
So I want to...
No, what she says, it makes a lot of sense. There's discussions that are happening, but they're not bringing in the young perspective or the youth to weigh in.
Yeah.
And that, whose fault is that? Is it the youth for not knowing, or is it the adults that are engaging?
So I want to ask you about something. So when I talk about the organizing work that I do with young people from across Massachusetts, I often talk about how there's not a seat at the table for them. And I often think of it as being a part of my job is to identify the right room, identify the right table, and try to pull that chair up for a young person. Now you've done something, Maddie, that's really, really neat. And I'm really impressed by it. And I would love if you could maybe tell us a little bit about maybe the effort. But you work to get a seat for a youth representative to weigh in on school committee issues. Tell us, how did that come up and kind of what was that experience like?
Well, it all started after I was voted in as vice president. We were all kind of just sitting around, me, the president, Anase, sorry, I'm blanking out on her last name right now, the treasurer, Kevin Lopez, and the, just kidding, that's Cole Conlon, the treasurer, and the secretary, Kevin Lopez. We were all just kind of sitting around talking about issues that we felt were important, and Anase brought up the issue that we used to have a student representative on the school committee, and it somehow just kind of vanished and dropped off, and that it was really important to have someone there to weigh in on the issues for our high school if they're going to be talking about things that include us, things that affect our lives every day, being in the high school. We should have a voice on that seat to tell them what's going wrong every day and tell them what's going right so that we can fix issues and improve things.
Yeah, one of the reasons I really like that is where I hear you saying, Vlad, you brought it up, Jack, you echoed it. Well, you know, it really helps when there's an adult that can kind of open the door and invite a young person in. What really impresses me about that solution that you all pushed for was you don't need the adult. There's a seat at the table already.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily need a gatekeeper, but there's a chair. And so I'm really impressed by that.
Yeah.
Two other things I'll lift up that I don't think are very widely known is that currently through Lowell City Council we have a youth services subcommittee, which is entire focus is to really make sure that there's support for youth service programs, but also other youth related initiatives in the city. So we have a voice on our city council for that, and that's something that I think is really great that the city has done. Additionally, there is right now a youth council where young people are nominated through different service agencies to form a council, and they meet regularly and they talk about issues that matter to them and their peers, and then they have the ear of the mayor and the council to weigh in. So these are two things I don't know if a lot of folks know about, but definitely amongst that spirit of pulling up the chair for more young people, that and reinstating having a young person sit with school committee, I applaud them, I admire them, and if there are more ideas, I think we should be considering them as a city. All right, so I think a lot of folks talk about young people as, you know, future leaders. I'm one of those people that sees young people as current leaders. That being said, it's my hope that although you're all engaged now, you'll continue to be engaged for a long time. And I'm just curious, going down the line, and Maddie, we can start with you and work our way down. But where do you see our city being in 10 years from now?
That is a really good question. Where I'd like to see our city be is improved, because there's always room for improvement. So I'd like to see, I'd definitely like to see Lowell High stay downtown. That's a big thing for me. I'd definitely like to see, as you kind of mentioned before, more bike lanes, us to be more economically stable, us to bring in more youth involvement, as we're talking about today. And I'd definitely like to see just all around improvement, happier people in the city, happier city.
No, excellent. I'm actually going to jump down to Jack. We'll come back to Vlad. Jack, where do you see the city of Lowell in 10 years from now?
I mean,
27.
in 10 years, I too also hope that Lowell High stays downtown. I also hope, kind of just reiterate what Maddie said, that Lowell continues to thrive economically. That we continue to be a city that accepts many people, regardless of who you are. And I just hope we stay like the accepting city that we've always been.
Vlad, 10 years.
10
Crystal
years.
ball.
Crystal ball. Boom. hopefully with the help of young folks like them, and yourself too.
I'm still young.
Yeah, of course. To participate in the process, to continue being key in the decision making of the city. I would love that in 10 years from now, the emerging leaders that are growing up now, or our young adults now, will be taking on the positions of the ones that are kind of leaving for those key decision making. I also like to see Lowell to be more culturally and economically diverse, because Lowell is diverse. But what I mean is mixed diversion, not subgroup diversion.
I agree completely on that. I mean, being from the high school and like living in Lowell all my life, you definitely see the division of people of different cultures and backgrounds and races just kind of, and like economic situations just having a hard time combining together. And I think if we can have everyone sit down and really figure out that we're not all that different from each other, we'd have a more understanding community that'd be able to solve problems more efficiently.
It's interesting to hear you say that. So about a year ago, my wife and I bought our first house up on Christian Hill. So we're in Centerville. And it's really interesting to hear some of the discussions about our neighborhood of Centerville. It's almost like there's an entirely different world to the east of Bridge Street than there is to the west of Bridge Street. And for me, I'm always thinking, well, that's Centerville, right? So it's really interesting to hear you say that, because I think about it in one way, but I think the reality is that they're different worlds.
But whose reality? See what I mean?
Right.
It is one neighborhood.
Right.
Just
right.
like the Lower Highland and Upper Highland. For me, it's one neighborhood. I lived in the Lower Highland.
Yeah.
I didn't consider two different neighborhoods. For me, it was one neighborhood that could have had resources interchange and mix.
Yeah, no, and that's great, and that's why I hope you stay plugged into this community. I think that just hearing us talk about some of these issues now, I'm really excited about the next 10 years. So let's talk voting. So I'm just going to go down the line. Yes or no? Are you a registered voter? Jack.
Yes.
Yes.
Vlad.
Have
Maddie.
been for a while.
Yes.
Oh, perfect score. I love it. Why is voting important? Because I'll tell you one thing. We need more young people to step up and vote, not just for federal elections where we're seeing all the commercials, right? 24-hour news cycles, CNN, Fox, right? But local elections. Why is voting so important for young people? Jack, what do you think?
I mean, well, I know that, there's some people I've talked to, they've complained like, oh, if I vote, like, it really won't do anything. But, voting is your one chance to, like, have your say in a matter. And I think, like, you have, like, this duty to vote anyways. It's your home. Voting, it's, you're deciding on issues that'll, like, affect your city. It really do think, like, it's essential that, the youth, gets active and starts voting.
I just want to echo one of the points you said, and my second point. So the way I look at voting, and when I think of why it's so important, is because I go out to vote when I'm inspired. And I think that if the candidates inspire more young folks, they will come out and vote. That's how you get a large representation of a segment of the population. If you want young folks to vote, you have to inspire the young people to come out and vote for you. Just my first election voting was Obama. I came out because I was inspired by this first. I remember just seeing him on TV, this politician. I was like, geez, I never felt this way about any politician. And then from there on, I started paying more attention to local elections. And I have been voting in local elections by inspirational, or at least to me, inspirational to me, candidates. So then the second thing is, how do you connect young folks to the local issue and make it reflected to them that if they vote for so-and-so, or if they vote for this is how it's going to affect their daily life. They don't understand how local politics affects their neighborhoods, which roads they're going to get paved, which are they going to be able to walk in their neighborhood because the snow get plowed, things like that. They don't connect the dots. So that'll have to be like an educational knowledge piece, but then the first one is definitely inspiration.
Awesome. Maddie, why vote?
Well, I agree with you completely on that. It's getting young people and just people in general, I guess, to understand that what happens throughout the voting process through our city council is it affects our daily lives, from pavements to placement of a school to traffic lights. It affects our daily lives, and what someone said to me once is, if you don't vote, you don't get a say. It's basically, if you don't go out and vote, then you're choosing to sit out. You're choosing to not put your voice in to say what you want done for your city. So if you choose not to vote, you have to just sit and watch, and you can't complain if anything goes wrong.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking when I was first told that, when I was just 18 years old, there was a presidential election, and my dad asked me, who are you going to vote for? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, you haven't done your homework? And I said, I don't think I'm going to vote. And he goes, if you don't vote, you can't complain. I said, oh, well, okay. And I'm a huge fan of complaining. So I realized if I wanted to continue complaining, I had to at least have voted. Let me ask you, knowing that even if you don't vote, even if you don't get engaged, and I'm sure you have probably handfuls of peers that you wish would be more engaged, right, that aren't. I think we've learned that the political process is going to continue regardless, right? Like, decisions are going to be made regardless. So I think knowing that and knowing the importance to vote, but also knowing that, well, it's going to go forward anyway with or without me, I think that draws upon me stronger conviction to be engaged, right? I think that folks don't want to be governed. I think the idea of a democracy is that we all co-govern, and that's our vote, right? And so I'm really appreciative that y'all are registered voters. I hope that if there are more young people watching this episode right now that are considering whether or not to be a registered voter, I would highly encourage it. The worst thing in the world is if you don't register to vote and then you get inspired, but you miss the registration deadline and all of your friends go to vote and you got to stay home. It's a terrible feeling. And then you got to live with it for the entire term, right?
But then you're on for the next election, right?
There you go.
If you're inspired,
just stay in.
you'll continue down that path, and then it'll become normal.
Yeah.
You'll just always stay keyed in.
Yeah, yeah. And I also appreciate that we're really looking now at how important local issues are, right? This might be a crude joke, but whenever I talk to my friends or colleagues about why you should vote in local elections, I say, what's a bigger issue to you personally? What's bigger than if you flush the toilet and it doesn't go anywhere? That's municipal government.
Yeah.
And I think it's those bread and butter issues that really then start to affect folks.
Yeah. And I think, like you mentioned, you're a homeowner. It takes people to get to that level. Even I know we're talking about young people, but I know adults that are also not involved or engaged or even pay attention to the political process until they buy a home.
Because they're so now connected to municipal services.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. If you have kids that enter into school,
Or schools.
right, you get plugged in. If you buy a house, you get more plugged in. So I think the question is, if mechanisms like that exist, that kind of circumstantially get you engaged but older, are there ways to find those mechanisms for young people?
Yes.
Right? I think a great gift to youth engagement has been the debate around the high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you probably know this best, Maddie, because you've been in the high school this year.
Yeah.
Is there such thing as a young person that doesn't have an opinion on this issue?
I'd say no. A majority of people were very involved in this issue. I'd more say that people were more annoyed towards the end with this issue of constantly hearing it all the time. But all the people I talked to about this issue had a very strong opinion on it, and they were easily swayed and not easily swayed, and it really just brought a lot of people into the political process.
Yeah.
A lot of people came out when they first did the vote, and a lot of people came out when they did the rally outside of Lowell High for downtown. And I think that was a really beautiful thing to see people getting involved, young people especially.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a real quick break, and after the break, we're going to talk about other issues that you all think are really important youth issues. We have a city council election this fall, so I hope we can talk a little bit about issues that you hope come up. We'll be back in a bit.
This is 7-year-old Sarah. She dreams of becoming a teacher in the future, but right now she doesn't know how to get there. So how does Sarah stay on track? One day, Sarah's mom stumbled upon the Boys and Girls Club and encouraged Sarah to join. Now, Sarah is part of a community where she can build leadership, art, health, and life skills, all while having a ton of fun with new friends that support her no matter what. Thanks to her mother's decision, Sarah is now on the right track to a bright future. If Sarah can join, so can you! Help our kids reach their full potential. For more information, contact the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Lowell.
The Life Connection Center in Lowell is a community center for the homeless that provides complimentary meals, recovery support, and a safe place to sit and eat with friends and volunteers. Private donations provide 100% of the center's programs. Donations and volunteering are two ways to help us continue to serve the homeless in Middlesex County. Help us make the Life Connection Center a place of hope.
Hi, I'm Alana Flood. What's happening this week in Lowell? Find out. Join me for LTC News Thursdays at 6 on Channel 8.
Welcome back to Civic Sanctuary. Where we left off before the break, we started to talk about your opinions on the location of Lowell High. Maddie, we got to hear from you. Vlad, I'd like to throw to you. What are your thoughts on this issue?
Well, this is a hot issue in the city.
Hot issue.
It's a hot issue.
Yeah.
If I had a voting or a decision, I was a part of the decision making, I would choose to keep it downtown.
How come?
And here's the reason why. I think having the location currently where it is has so many pros that it will take us the whole segment to go down the list. But the two that I want to highlight is that Lowell High is positioned in the middle of UMass and Middlesex. And it's in downtown where it's the main hub of the city, I want to call it. Like, this is like the hustle and bustle of the city happens here in this downtown. And having the two higher education institution in between the high school, it just create this energy or this flow of education. It just, for me, that's like the biggest one. And the second one is, if we look at all the lower parts of the city, you know, I want to call them the lower parts of the city, because that's what they label them as, which Maddie just mentioned, that 1/3 of the high school walks to school. I guarantee you that those kids that are walking are from that lower part, which are the closest to the high school. So those are my two biggest reasons why I will keep it in downtown. But there's so many other. And I have 4 nephews and 1 niece that are up and coming to go to Lowell High.
All in Lowell?
All in Lowell. They all
Wow.
live in Lowell. So they will all be walking.
So you have skin in the game, as
Yes.
they say. Excellent. Jack, what are your thoughts?
I support the downtown location, and kind of just like what Vlad said, you know, there's a multitude of reasons as to why I support the downtown location, but I think the biggest reason for me is kind of what Maddie said. 1/3 of the students at Lowell High walk to school. And I really do believe, like, if the high school is moved to Colley, you know, all these kids that walk to school, they're literally going to be like out of place of getting to school, and you know, we still don't know how you know, these kids are going to get to school. Like, we don't know if we'll be able to create a bus system, or if the LRTA will still be able to provide transportation to them. There's still a lot of unknowns.
If I may add on to that,
Sure.
not only does it affect like walking to school, but a big thing that I saw within the high school is that it affects getting to resources, as you said. Like, you have those 2 colleges right in between, so it's the idea or the vibe of higher education. But not only that, like places like UTech are right downtown. A lot of kids depend on that to get out of bad situations or to help themselves get to higher places. And if you take away that resource, kids aren't going to bother to walk 30 minutes to get there. It just, it increases the dropout rate. It increases that who cares about education kind of feel, and why would we take that away?
Great point. Like UTech, Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc.
Yeah.
How many organizations are currently in downtown that are youth services? In the high schools, it's just, team block too for from the health center. I guess it just like, if you were drawing up a map on like where you're gonna put the high school, and if you're like a kid and drawing up, you wouldn't want to move it away from where everything is happening, right? You want to keep it close by. And also, the Lowell High School is a historical, beautiful building, and I know people want a state-of-the-art, beautiful design out in the kind of more suburb part of the neighborhoods, but they say they don't make them like they used to, and I do believe in that. I think renovating, using the state money that's available right now, with the state funding, to renovate our historic building, it's also another pro for us. As a city, we all gain that.
Excellent.
Not only that, I think a great point that was brought up during the first meeting where they had the vote is, one woman went up and said, we're standing in a historical building right now, like, do you want to change this and redesign it to be state-of-the-art? Like, no, these buildings are meant to last long periods of time, and they have and they can. So there's kind of like, do you really need a brand new thing when what you have is already pretty good, other than a few like minor things? Like, you have to think this has lasted since 1831.
1831.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a long time.
People travel to Europe to go see old architectural buildings.
Yeah.
So 500 years from now, if people will come to Lowell to check out the old Mills building in Lowell.
And also,
They do that now.
also, Lowell High is one of the first public educational high schools in America, and also one of the first co-ed high schools in America.
Yeah.
It's not just like a piece of Lowell history, it's kind of a piece of American history
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
Second that.
No, these are all good points.
I guess that we don't have any cons. That's why it should be moved.
You know what I love about this debate? It creates this huge gravity that gets new people engaged in Lowell issues. If you look back over decades, it's not very often that we have an issue, and I don't want to say an issue that's divisive. I want to say an issue that's so inviting.
Yeah.
Whatever side you're on. That's not common. I mean, I think in recent history before the high school, it was the big debate around the Songus Arena and LeLasher, right? And so I see this debate as a gift to Lowell because we do have so many new people. You know, Jack, you said this was the issue that got you plugged in. So I think, wherever you stand on the issue, you and many others are really a victory for the city. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited that particularly you both have been really active on this issue. Talking about youth issues as they relate, we got the high school, this is the big one. But I don't know if you know, at UTech, every 2 years, we bring our young people together with organizations across the city, and we run a really unique youth-led city council candidate forum. Usually very funny. I remember one year, instead of a traditional timekeeper with a buzzer, we had a duck, one of our young people dressed up as a duck, and it would run across the stage and quack to let you know that you've talked over your time limit. So we really try to bring a youth culture to it. But the real power behind it is that we can bring youth issues to the forefront of a city council election. And our young people came up with this idea now, 12 years ago, because as they were starting to get engaged and they started to watch these campaigns and the elections happening, they realized there weren't a ton of conversations being had around issues that are more closer to young people's experiences. So we run our own candidate forums and we try to bring that into it. So I'd like to ask you each, we have a city council election this fall. We know the high school is going to be the big issue that's probably going to take up a lot of the debate. But you have you have an opportunity right now with this platform on this show to maybe bring up other issues as well. So I don't know, Vlad, if you want to start, Jack, we can come down to you, and Maddie, what's another issue that you think is an issue that could get more discussion as it relates to young people?
As it relates to young people. So see, this is where I have a little bit of a debate within myself. Like, are we talking about youth my age? Because I'm also a little.
You are a little older.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a young recent high school graduate, but I'm a recent college graduate. So I guess I would speak from that perspective. And one of the issues is affordability, housing affordability in the city. I think there's two sides of progress in the city. I support, obviously, new development, and I do think it's good for our communities to get upgrade. But we also have to think of that, flip the coin on like what is that doing to families, or young adults that are graduating from college, wants to stay in the city, wants to work here and live here, be able to afford a lifestyle here, and find opportunity. So I think that's something that we all should start looking into as leaders. Like, how do we retain our talent, and how do we keep Lowell talent that was raised and bred here in this city? That's something that we really have to, and housing ties into that, and job opportunity ties into that.
I'm going to come back to that.
Yeah.
Jack, what do you think? What's an issue as it relates to your personal experience that you think it would be very valuable to inject into the campaign this fall?
I mean, I guess just more more youth involvement, like in the community, really, because like I said before, this is like your home. You need to like get active. If you really care about like where you live, like and the people around you, you kind of need to get active. Share your voice, and make your voice heard, so you can do what's best for your community.
So we got housing affordability, youth engagement. Maddie, what do you think? What's an issue that you would really like to see brought up in the debates this fall?
Well, I actually have to agree with Vlad, because as I told you before, I worked with a lot of youth involvement, and what I wasn't really aware of is there's a lot of homeless youth within the high school, and a lot of people don't have a place to go after school, and that was kind of really eye-opening to me because, like, I sat with a lot of these kids in class and had no idea. So I think that's a really big issue that we could bring up. As Jack said, bringing youth involvement, like having kids understand why they need to be involved, like, because this is your home. You have to want to have a say. And I think a really big thing that I'd like to see in this election is I'd like to see a little bit of change on the city council. I'd like to see some things mixed up.
I agree, yeah.
If anything, yeah.
This is great. I do hope that other young people and you, all three of you, plug into this election and raise some of these topics. A really good platform to use, Facebook.
Yeah.
You guys all on Facebook?
Facebook,
Of
Twitter,
course,
yeah,
Facebook.
social media.
Sweet.
And then,
So-
if I might, sorry, I'm just going to add one more issue that it's relevant to young people because it's education. And I think that if, school committee, because the school committee is also running for this
Yep.
year, right? It's not just counselors. So I think school committee out to really engage the youth in what education looks like in Lowell, especially since the fact that the old No Child Left Behind is being rolled out and the new ESSA it's being implemented. I think that's something extremely important that's going to affect our city and it's going to affect our youth education, right? Period. So that's another kind of issue that I see the school committee members being extremely, proactive in engaging young folks.
This will certainly be an issue that whoever's elected to school committee is going to have to deal with next term. No, that's really good insight with the new ESSA plan. Thanks for bringing that up. I want to talk Facebook, but not just about Facebook. I want to talk more generally about how we now engage as a civil society. As young people, how are government and elected officials engaging you? Are they? And not by all levels, I mean, you have federal government, right, which I think gets most of the glory. You have state government down on Beacon Hill in Boston, right? And you also have local government, which is our city council. So from any different of those, perspectives, how are elected officials reaching out to you as young people and now voters?
So individual politicians.
Sure, or parties, whoever, or campaigns. Are they, how are they reaching out to you?
I guess to me is I seek, so I find. I'm constantly reading news, blogs, NPR every morning. So I kind of find because I seek. But local candidates, what's funny actually, being as involved as I am and engaged as I am, I don't get reached out by local politicians.
So like running for city council, school committee?
Very few in the past, but recently, in the last, let's say, 3 years, no. Yeah, that's right. But statewide, I have been reached out for state elections, but not local, like Lowell city elections.
Interesting.
Well, if I could add on to that, I've thought about this question a lot, and I think a big thing that politics reach out to us is emotional appeals, and especially being young people and maybe not having a full understanding or being like completely involved because you're new to the system, that you kind of do what feels right for you more than anything else, so that when you hear, like, for example, Bernie Sanders really spoke to me because he's so passionate and he's so hard on what he believes, like, and he's not giving up, that really spoke to me. And that when you look at like local politicians, it's not as hard-hitting issues, so it's harder to get that emotional appeal out, which is what I think makes it harder for them to really reach out to us.
So it's almost like the design of the message resonated more with you, and local, whether it be the issues are different or what, but local candidates aren't necessarily kind of getting that message that kind of hits you here.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes it hits here, but not as here. Jack, how do you feel candidates reach out to you?
I mean,
Or are they?
well, I mean, I do agree with Vlad in terms of like local politicians. They really haven't, done really anything to like, contact me personally, like try to get me involved. But of course, like politicians at the federal level, like they've tried to like engage with me. I get like emails a couple times from like, not like from actual, politicians, just from like their staff, just trying to like, keep me aware of like what's going on, like, down in the Capitol. But
What do you think is the difference between those levels of engagement? Is it that they're targeting you better, more intentionally? Is it that they have the money to?
Yeah, I would say.
yeah, I think that has like part to play in it. And also I think, because federal politicians, like it kind of affects, it affects, way more people. When you hear like, a local politician, you kind of just like, it doesn't really affect like that many people. So I really, shouldn't,
I think for me is federal and statewide, they have a bigger operation, right? They have more staff. A local politician is pretty much himself and maybe 2-3 family members, good friends, but that's about it, right? There's no one else doing their campaign outreach. So it's a little bit harder for them, I know. But I think a good way for local politicians to engage young folks is to be at places where young folks are, right? To be and go to places where you will find youth to talk to, and not from like, I'm gonna go to UTech to do a forum to talk to youth. Not in that aspect. To really be in the environment where young folks will be, and you're just a participant. That will gain their trust to you, and you will gain insight on what their issues are, and just learn more about young folks' perspective in the city. I think that's just the natural way. And I mean, if you're a local politician, that should be easy to you, because it's not like you're having to go from state to state or all over the country.
Right.
It's
Might
so
just be driving from Centerville to back central.
Oh
right?
yeah, or stopping at Brewed Awakening in the morning, having a coffee and your morning coffee there. I mean, you're bound to run into, or the coffee mill. There's
Good plugs.
yeah, I mean, I'm giving out the plugs, but it's okay because that's what I want, right?
Yeah.
I want that.
Well,
to
so
happen.
you're doing what I would love to shift the conversation towards, and that is, what advice would you have for elected officials? How could they reach out to young voters? What do you think? Go to Brood?
Yeah, for sure. I'll
Yeah.
be there too.
Yeah, hanging out?
Yeah, no, I know. Oh, and then also social media. Like, I mean, not that you will get like a super response, but there's social media outlets that you can plug in as a politician to kind of get a feel for what's happening in the city and like hear voices or read voices. I should say. Another way is there's a lot of events that are being put on in the city by young people that are just open public events.
Like Dance for Peace?
Exactly. That's one. Dance for Peace. There was a fashion show the other day over at I forget the name of that hall, but it's in Pawtuckaville. I forget the name of that hall, but yeah. So things like that are going to be young people there. I know it's hard sometimes because you think of yourself like, oh well, I'm a politician. I'm older. I shouldn't be going to those events, but you should, because that's when you gain insight.
Yeah, right. What do you guys think? What's a good way that if folks would like to reach out to more young people, how could they?
Well, what I was thinking as you guys were talking is it's the fact that when you look at local politicians, you kind of think, like, it's not really a big deal. Like, it's not like our president. Like, and I think the way that they can reach out to us is making us realize why it does matter. It's the fact of saying, like, we might not be the president, we might not be dealing with these huge worldwide issues, but that there are issues in the city that we can fix, that we can make at least your daily life better to just improve all around. And I think that's a really big thing that city councilors and school committee could do, just be like, hey, like, I can improve your life by doing this, like reaching out and giving me a reason to vote for you.
So that leads me to another question, and that is, why? Why do you think it is valuable, if I'm an elected official, to reach out to younger people? What do you think?
Well,
Where's the value?
I mean, you're an elected official. I mean, you're supposed to represent everybody in this community, and that includes the youth. I mean, the youth may not be able to vote, but their voice matters. And they play a big part in their community, and they're going to play a big part when they get older.
Oh, great. What do you guys think? Where's the value in it?
What's the value for the politicians?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like, to me, I'm just like, wow, how do I want to answer that? Extremely high. Like, if you don't see the value as a politician from getting perspective from all across different segments in the city, then I don't think you'll be a politician for much longer. You definitely need the voices of as much possible different perspective in the city.
So diversifying your understanding of issues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good way to frame it, yeah.
I agree with that. Maddie, what do you think?
Well, I have to agree with what they said. It's the fact that you're representing everyone within the city, and I think it's also the fact that people have to understand that you can really vote from anywhere. I know that I'll be in Rhode Island for Roger Williams, and I know that I can either drive home and vote or I can have it sent to me in the mail, and a lot of people don't understand, like, just because you're not there at the moment to vote, like, you still can vote for it. So I think it's just knowing that, like, people will vote if they know that they can, if they have the ability to, and you're there to represent everyone, so you have to get the opinion and voices of everyone.
There's a group at a Tufts University called CIRCLE, which is an acronym that stands for the Center for Information and Research for Civic Learning and Engagement. And they do some tremendous work nationally looking at youth engagement. And one of their findings, I remember reading years ago, showed that a huge cause for young people to begin voting is if they were asked to. And I've often thought, if I'm an elected official, right, not only is it valuable for me to get other opinions or diversify my understanding of issues, but also it helps me to get votes. And I think it's always been very valuable for elected officials to go to young people and say, you should vote. Because on one hand, it'll get them a potential supporter, but also it broadens their base. So on one hand, you have the more kind of fundamental, yes, more people should be represented, but on the other side of it, in terms of kind of campaign strategies, and I think it also makes sense because, it's never a bad thing for an elected official to get more voters, right?
Yeah. And voters that continue to vote for you as they get older and stay in the city, right? Like if you
Good investment.
like that's a great
Good
investment. It will
investment.
return. It will be a good return in the future.
Yeah, I mean, geez, if you get someone at 19 years old to start voting for you, you could
Think about it.
could be in office for 20 years more, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So, I want to go through some closing thoughts here. We've had a great discussion around high school. We've talked about different issues that you'd like to see brought up. We talked about kind of what got you all engaged. We also talked a little bit about other ways that young people can get engaged in Lowell. What I'd like to end with is I want to give each of you an opportunity to look right at our cameras. And Maddie, I'll start with you. I want you all to look right into the camera and talk to all of the young people that are watching this episode. And I want you to give them a compelling reason why they should get engaged in local issues. Sound cool?
Okay.
Sounds
So
good.
Maddie, why don't we start you? You can look right at our camera, right here, camera 3, and make a compelling case to other youth voters out there.
Well, I think the big thing is that this is the city that you grew up in. Has given you everything. You learned here, you've grown here, you've made friends, you've had family here, and it's the fact that this is home. Like, this is really where your heart is. So it all begins here. Like, you have to care about the place you're living in and the people who surround you. And by doing that is voting, by getting out your opinion and saying what is best for this city and what is best for the people. So if you really want to make that impact for the place that you love the most, the place that has raised you, go out and vote. Register today.
Awesome. Thank you. Jack, I'm going to go to you. Vlad, I'm going to give you our closing remark. Jack, feel free to look right into our camera and tell all the viewers out there, particularly young people, why they should get engaged.
Well, I mean, just to kind of reiterate what Maddie said, this is your home. And, a vote is like to take care of your home. You have to, think about where you grew up. This is where your family grew up. This is where, you've learned, many of the principles and values that you hold dear in your life. You have to vote in order to, take care of your city.
Thank you. Vlad, closing thoughts. Feel free to look right into that camera and give your advice to young people.
I will pose a question to every young person in Lowell. If I tell you that the people making decision on your behalf need you in order for them to make that decision, would you go out and pick that person? Now, the answer is you probably don't even know that person. And that's why I think it's important to go out and vote and to register and to be keyed into the civic process in Lowell. Because there's people making decisions every Tuesday night at City Hall. And if you don't know who those people are, they're making a decision for you, they're making a decision for me, and for everyone sitting in here. And we need you and everybody that could vote in the city to be actively selected those folks, because there's a big impactful issues that are going to impact you and all of us and your family. And if you don't think that's important, if you think that, well, I don't care who makes my decisions, then I guess my question to you is, you want to live the rest of your life like that? To other people make decisions for you and not have a choice on who those people are? I guess that's why I think it's extremely important to be engaged locally, because the people that are making a decision that are going to impact you the most are in your hand. They're literally at your disposal.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to all three of you. I just want to say I am extremely impressed by the level of engagement that you've already done, everything in the high school, what you're doing in college, what you're doing after college. I know in my work, working with young people in Lowell, that my dream is that Lowell continues to get even better with every generation. I love this city. I think we're one of the best cities in the country, if not the world. And I think that we can continue to best ourselves. And I think the best way to do something like that is to continue to invest, not in future leaders, but in our current young leaders. And again, thank you so much for the work. I hope that it is just continues. I hope that you do more. I hope that you all consider getting even more engaged in local matters. I hope maybe even consider running for office one day. But I'm extremely proud. I'm glad that I got to sit here with you and have these discussions. And even though the show is about to end, I hope that we can continue to have discussions as we continue to co-create a better Lowell.
Yes, takes all of us.
Does.
Definitely.
Definitely.
So thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Thank you for having us.
This concludes this month's installment of Civic Sanctuary. We've had a great discussion about youth civic engagement, and I know that after having this discussion with these three, the future of Lowell is extremely bright. Tune in next time, and thanks for watching.